Good grief. Hello, everybody. Happy 2023. This is Dragoncast. I'm Jamie East.
And I'm Chris Mandle.
And this is what happens when the non-existent bumps against the decrepit.
Who is who in that analogy, please?
I'm the decrepit, obviously, because I'm decrepit. But no, actually, there's no winner in this.
No, it's an insult, whichever way you.
It is.
Try and get out of it. But yeah.
Happy New Year. How are you doing?
Good, yeah. It feels like ages since we've done this, and it has been ages.
It has been a long time.
Yeah, but I'm good.
Great.
Good. You were in New York before Christmas?
I was, yeah. I went to New York.
How was that?
It was lovely. It was really expensive. I don't think it was like the exchange rate or anything. It was just like, one of the kids wanted to go to McDonald's and they wanted like a chicken sandwich. It was $7, and I was just like, in what world is that? When did that happen?
Yeah, well, pound saver menu. That was like the backbone of my childhood.
Exactly. And how was your Christmas?
It was great. Yeah, I went up to Cumbria. Everybody was ill. Everyone had like the like viral chest infection that we're not calling COVID, but everyone is catching from being in close proximity with each other. It was great though, really nice. And then it was my birthday last week. Do you know, it's one of those things though that on the 3rd of January, which is my birthday, everyone is so like just not in the mood. You have to really remind people it's a special day for me.
Yeah.
But it was nice. I actually had to work. I was interviewing an actor. I can't tell you who at this point, but it was worth it. That's all I would say.
We had a message actually of someone asking, can we hear some more about the Charlie Cox story? Are we allowed to hear that yet? To those of you who don't know, on the last episode we had, Chris often humble brags about the A-listers that he's... it's classic kind of like do a lot of work for charity but don't like to talk about it. He interviews some of the world's biggest stars, but before the embargo breaks, so he's not allowed to tell us about it. So
yes, so 2 bits of information now that Christmas has been and gone.
Yeah.
So a lot of people wanted to know who the actor was that had his Christmas tree up really early. That was in fact Luke Evans. So I was interviewing him in like the 21st of November, and he was sat in front of his tree, fully lit, looking like he was about to do CBeebies bedtime story kind of vibe. And I was like, you've already got your tree up. And it was basically because he was going away for Christmas. So he got it up so he could enjoy it nice and early.
I see.
Which I respect, because I like to get my tree up early.
But it was a little bit strange.
Really early, yeah. So that was the mystery that is, I think it's been going on for about 3 episodes of Dragoncast now, is who had their tree up?
Who had the tree up?
It was, in fact.
It was Gaston. Gaston?
Indeed, yeah. He was great. I really enjoyed talking to him. It's the second thing. So in the last episode, I talked about Charlie Cox. Did I talk about interviewing him? Yeah.
Yes, Daredevil, to those of you who don't know.
Yes, yeah. Charlie Cox, he was in this Netflix show over Christmas called Treason. That was what the embargo was attached to.
Right.
And I also reviewed that. So I watched that just before our last episode. Maybe some people who listen to the podcast watched it. It dropped on Boxing Day. It's like a 5-part spy drama featuring Una Chaplin, who was in Game of Thrones. Yeah. But I didn't really like it. I thought it was a bit of a...
yeah, you put me off watching it. I didn't watch it in the end.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. But the thing is, it's like they're all 40 minutes. There's 5 episodes. You could sort of rattle through it in 2 days, but in Betwixtmas, it's sort of perfect for that. And I thought some of it was quite interesting, but it's just sort of constantly deciding it wants to be a different sort of show.
Right.
Every episode, it's like, actually, we're not spy, we're espionage. It's actually not this. It's actually like a domestic drama. Actually, it's not this. It's actually, and you're just like, make your mind up.
Yeah. No, I get you.
So,
what did you watch anything over Christmas that you would recommend that you really enjoyed?
Well, I did Slow Horses, which dropped on Apple TV Plus at the start of December.
I've done season 1, not done season 2.
Yeah, so we finished that like last week. I think the finale, because it's only 6 episodes.
Right. Okay.
We watched that last week, and it's pretty good. It's not as good as the first season. It's a lot of the cast are off doing separate things. I think it might be a COVID thing because it was filmed at the same time as season 1. But
so also, Olivia Cook is in it. Is she in it?
She is in season 1, but she's not in season 2.
Oh,
I thought she would come back in.
Wasn't she in hospital or something at the end of season 1?
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
Not killed. And I thought that was a really odd choice.
Not
I haven't read
killed,
the books
just
that they're based
filming
on.
House of the Dragon. Yeah.
She's obviously going to come back.
She ain't going to come back now. Not unless something is going to happen to Alicent. And there's no way, right? No way.
True.
That a principal cast member of it'd be like Kit Harington appearing on and Severance whilst Game of Thrones was still on. I don't think HBO would have that. I think contracts would be pretty
probably right. It's a shame because she was good in Slow Horses, but she's taken out of it quite quickly, isn't she?
Yeah.
But the second season is really good. It's just everyone's split off, and it's the sort of all of them in the office kind of squabbling is what's so great about it. So that is brilliant. And again, 6 episodes, like it's such a good length for a show. But what they do every season, which I love, is after season 2, after the last episode, they show a trailer for season 3.
It's deeply irritating, but really good marketing, I think.
It's really good. So what they do is, I was talking to someone on Twitter about this, is that they did season 1 and 2 together. They filmed, because when you've got 6 episodes a season, if you do 2, that's 12. That's not that much more than 10, which is the sort of standard. So you can get away with it.
Yeah.
And spread the costs and that sort of thing. So they had all this footage to do a trailer even before season 1 came out. And then in that period since between season 1 and 2, they've obviously shot some of season 3. It's just so canny.
Yeah.
And I just think it's obviously not everyone can do that.
Yeah. No, good
but I just love it.
It's something that's always fascinated me is when you see, and I never really know why they do this. And it must be it got to be a writing thing. You know, when you have a cliffhanger at the end of a season, and then the following season, which is like 18 months, sometimes 2 years later, they pick up where it left off. I always just assumed that when they're filming the cliffhanger, they just film film for like 10 minutes longer and have the resolution of that. I think maybe Sherlock or those kind of things where you're left kind of wondering, are they alive, are they dead? Like Jon Snow in
Exactly, but they didn't.
But they don't. They never ever do. And I'm just like, surely it's more economical and easier and for continuity, for everything, just to kind of like actually make the cliffhanger in the edit, not in the script, and so you've got it all in the bag. I always wondered that, like especially with the Jon Snow thing,
because also he cut his hair. That was the big thing, that he was like, I'm not coming back, I've cut my hair. But this actor I interviewed last week was telling me that he's on a TV show at the moment, and he said between filming he's not allowed to shave, because the beard has to be a certain length. So they have a specific set of clippers, all these rules, photos. So he has to look, like Bigfoot, basically, when he's not filming.
There's a documentary on Netflix that your man, fucking hell, it's called Stutz, and it's Jonah Hill. Documentary where he interviews his therapist, and it's really, really good.
Well, that sounds good.
But there's a big reveal halfway through, because it's the way it's shot, and this isn't a spoiler. The way it's shot is very intimate. It's beautiful, kind of black and white, very expensive looking kind of documentary in a really nice, like mid-century Californian kind of like house where it's all Eames furniture and the nice shit. Yeah. And then anyway, like halfway through, Jonah Hill makes this big revelation where he's like, I feel really bad because I don't feel like I'm being honest with the viewer here. Like the way that you're looking at this now makes it look like we've shot this over 2 days. Actually, the scene that you watched just now was shot 2 years ago, and we filmed the whole thing in front of green screen. And he clicks his fingers, and it shows that they're in this, actually just in some random warehouse like green screen studio.
What?
Yeah. And he goes, and worse than that is like I've had to wear this damn wig because I've shaved my head, and like takes off this wig which just like, he's got that really nice bleached blonde kind of grown out long hair, which is really nice. But he just like pulls off, I shaved my head and I've got to wear this fucking wig, and we've had to wear the same clothes. Like, just mental. Hollywood will never cease to amaze me.
That sounds so interesting.
Yeah, it was.
No.
Really,
what did you watch over Christmas that?
Oh my God! Do you know what? I really struggled to find anything to get my teeth into in a drama-esque kind of thing. There was nothing. Basically, it's always difficult at Christmas because all the family's at home, and there's such a wide range of ages and tastes and patience, and all the rest of it. What actually happened was, me, Mrs. East, and all the young Easts, we all ended up binging The Traitors in like most of our Christmas Day. We watched we must have watched like 5 episodes of The Traitors on Christmas Day. I'd purposely, and I think a lot of people get like this. If a show is like proclaimed to be fucking amazing by social media, I'll almost refuse to watch it because I'll be the judge of that. Thank you very much. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I kind of like and so I'll almost repel the kind of that kind of show.
I've not seen any of the trailers.
Simultaneously, managed to avoid any spoilers. So thought, we'd give it a watch. You know, there was nothing else. We'd argued over we tried to half watch a whole bunch of stuff, and no one liked any of my choices, and I was getting cross, and all that kind of stuff. So we watched one, and it was just like, holy shit, this is just amazing. It's like I don't know if any of the other series will be as good as the first series, because it was new, it was fresh, the format's good, and all the contestants in it were so like new to the format and didn't really play a game, all of that kind of stuff.
So what? Because I don't know what it's about.
It's basically have you ever played Among Us? Like It's basically murder. It's like Murder in the Dark, really. It's a very, very simple format, but it's kind of fiendishly brilliant to watch. So Claudia Winkleman, who's amazing as the host in it, by the way, like campus tits. There's I think it's like 20 contestants, or there's a lot of contestants. They all arrive, and three of them are chosen as traitors, in secret, even from each other at first, and the rest are called faithfuls. And it's the faithfuls' job to weed out the traitors. Yeah. Okay. And it's the traitor's job to murder a faithful every day. So, and at the end of it, they do these tasks, these kind of like Big Brother Crystal Maze-esque tasks that builds the prize pot up to like 120 grand. So it's a decent chunk of cash. And you're left with like a final 3 or final 4.
Okay.
And if they've managed to successfully get rid of all the traitors, then they share the cash together. However, if there's one traitor that's remained, that traitor wins everything. And it's about, and it's like, it's just deceit and lying and subterfuge. And, there's people like, it's all like, I know that they wouldn't be a traitor because they're such a lovely human being. And we as viewers know that they are. And you're like, oh my God, it's amazing.
So you as the viewers know.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. At first you think, I'd rather not know, but it's much better to be complicit.
Because it's
complicit in it. It's like Columbo. We already know who the murderer is in Columbo at the beginning. We see the act. It's just that then we're drawn into the story. It's really clever and very, very.
It's
good.
very though. You've got a drama. It's better if the audience knows more than the characters.
100%.
It's like the Circle was such a success because we could see that someone was like, oh, I'm like a 19-year-old like supermodel, and it was like a pervy old man. Like there's something. Representation. So that's okay. That's really good to know. I feel like I just missed the boat. I wanted to have watched it while everyone was talking about it.
Nah, I think you can just enjoy it. You should just sit down and put it on. Anyway,
we're very close to the end of our Sopranos rewatch.
Oh my God! Amazing.
Nearly at the end of part 1 of season 6.
Oh, shit,
so
it's pretty intense, isn't it?
It's amazing. It just blows my mind. So we're kind of like civil debate about what the next old show is. Because we always have an old show on the go.
Yeah.
And then like something new.
Has Rob joined you on the OA?
On the
OA?
No. I watch it when he's out.
Okay.
I think he might have watched season 1 though. It's not really his thing. Okay. I don't think it's really his thing. Yeah. Very looking forward to discussing that in our OA episode.
Yeah, that bonus one will be coming up tomorrow or something. OA episode 5, which is pretty fucking amazing, actually. But
blew my mind.
More about that on another one. Right, it's about time. So thank you to everyone that voted. We're now into season 3 of our Game of Thrones rewatch, and the episodes that you all chose were season 3, episode 4. I think that's right, isn't it? Yeah. And now his watch has ended. Then episode 7, which is the the Bear and Fair Maiden, and
the Bear and the Maiden
Fair, and the Maiden Fair rather, and then episode 9, the Reigns of Castamere.
The Reigns of Castamere.
So we're going to crack on now with and now his watch has ended. But if you need a bit of a recap, here is that exact recap from our sister podcast, The previously on. See you in a sec. We pick up where we left off, with one-time Hand of the King, Jamie, missing his king of a hand. He rides broken, mocked by his captors. Falling exhausted from his horse, he manages to grab a sword from one of the men, but is quickly beaten. In the north, Bran shares a dream with Jojen that he's running through a forest. They see the three-eyed raven, and Jojen tells Bran he should follow it. As Bran climbs a tree, he sees Catelyn, who grabs him and shouts at him to stop climbing, and Bran falls. Elsewhere in the north, Theon is being led through the woods by the same man who freed him from the dungeon and later killed his attackers. They're headed for Deepwood Motte, where the man says Yara, Theon's sister, is waiting for him. Upon entering a passageway into the castle, Theon tells the man he didn't kill the Stark boys. He's then led into the exact same dungeon he was previously freed from and seized by the guards, much to the delight of the clearly insane man who'd earlier pretended to save him. Down in King's Landing, Varys meets the prostitute Ros and learns that Littlefinger may be planning to take Sansa with him when he leaves for the Eyrie. Varys later meets with Olenna Martell to share his concerns regarding this. Considering Littlefinger one of the most dangerous men in Westeros, he ponders what power he might have should he marry Sansa, who's the key to the north. Elsewhere, Margaery and Sansa form the first bonds of friendship. Margaery tells her that when she's queen, she'd like Sansa to marry her brother Loras. North of the Wall, tensions are even higher than usual at Craster's Keep. Some of the Night's Watch accuse Craster of keeping the food for himself and his girls. Taking great offence, he grabs a nearby axe and threatens them. All hell breaks loose, and Craster is stabbed in the throat by a brother of the Night's Watch. Jorah Mormont draws his sword, but is betrayed and killed by Rast. Sam flees the mutiny to find Gilly and the baby, and the three of them escape. In the Riverlands, Arya, Gendry and the Hound are taken to the Brotherhood Without Banner's hideout. They're met by the leader of the Brotherhood, Beric Dondarrion, previously commanded by Ned to bring the Mountain to justice. The Hound is branded a murderer, and despite his argument that he was acting on orders, is sentenced to fight Beric in a trial by combat. Over the sea in Astapor, Daenerys brings Krasnys, the largest of her dragons, Drogon, as payment for the Unsullied army. During the exchange, Krasnys insults Daenerys in his native Valyrian tongue again, while struggling to control Drogon. When Daenerys responds in fluent Valyrian, this in fact being her mother tongue, Krasnys is left dumbstruck. Daenerys then commands her new army to take Astapor, kill the slavers and soldiers, and free every slave they find. Drogon is commanded to kill Krasnys. Daenerys frees the Unsullied from slavery and asks them to fight for her as free men. The army pound their spears on the ground in support and together leave Astapor.
For me, Chris, this... I don't know if you... Weirdly, I realised watching this episode that in my mind there's almost like there's different eras of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And we're now entering, I think, what's kind of arguably the golden era of Thrones now. This seems to be... I was watching it thinking, well, it feels as though we've really moved on, even from Blackwater, which was only theoretically like 4 or 5 episodes in.
Yeah.
But we also feel a million miles away from where it ends up still. But it felt like classic Game of Thrones. It felt like all of the characters are there now, pretty well established, or with the exception of like your Greyjoy fella. And a few others that, we've seen Ramsay, all of those kind of things. It just felt very much like this is the Game of Thrones that set the world alight,
Yeah.
What did you think?
I remember season 3 being the one where it felt like everybody was watching it.
Yeah.
And excuse me. I actually thought the same thing when I was watching it as you did just there, which is I feel like you can break it down into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3,
That's
and I feel like we're at almost at the end of phase 1, which to me culminates in the Red Wedding. Everything up to the Red Wedding is like the first bit.
Yeah, that's
the second bit is like 4, 5, 6, and then the final bit is 7 and 8. And so it's like everything's well established. We're seeing really interesting combinations of people playing off against each other, which is really the best part, I think. and there's lots of callbacks, which we'll get into, but like Clegane killing the butcher's boy way back in episode 2, like that comes back as Arya accuses him of murder. That's now led to a trial.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things where it's just, ricocheting and things kind of firing against each other, which makes it just so satisfying. But I remember this as being the episode. I mean, I loved it already.
Yeah.
But it was a specific kind of show. And this episode is where it literally gets quite explosive with the dragons. The dragons get, sort of weaponized for the first time. I think this is the first time they kind of unleashed. And that is a game-changing. You suddenly realise when they're really small, Daenerys is able to sort of destroy a small town and fuck people over. Well, and suddenly it's just the potential for the show is just off the charts, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the closing scene is
amazing.
Daenerys goes from zero to an actual. All of a sudden, you realise, shit, she's a real credible threat to the throne now. All she needs to do is figure out a way of getting over the bloody sea, and which actually ends up taking quite a few seasons yet.
Quite some time.
But the size of the army, size of the Unsullied, and actually, like you say, weaponizing these dragons, and also having a taste for vengeance and violence as well. And don't want to drag it up, but this is the Daenerys that we ended up with. This is where it all began. We ended up with should not have been a surprise to you. She was right there. She was right there.
It was
all
communicated.
along.
It was communicated.
It was
the interesting thing, I think, is, and it's our fault as an audience, but it's also the way that she's been written so far, is we didn't think she was going to double cross people. We thought, when you've got this sort of like very. Like when you've got someone who is very conscious, like driven, but is that I'm on the side of right here, you think, oh, you're going to like win people over with hearts and minds, which she does do, right? All of those Unsullied, she's like, you don't work for me, but you can come with me. And they come with her not because she's paying them, not because she owns them. They follow her because they believe in her. And that is the key thing here, because like we've seen on the show, people buy the Golden Company or sell swords, or that's fine. What wins over, how you conquer, is through hearts and minds, and she did that in this episode.
And and I think that was a key kind of juxtaposition, was the fact that we saw Daenerys do that and win them over by the fact that that they believe in her, and yet there was a conversation with Tyrion and earlier on, Varys about the fact that they were skint, and that the bank would just fund their enemies, and just there's no loyalty where the Lannisters are concerned. It's all about the money, and whereas with Daenerys at the end, we see that it's about belief and
it's about so
and
much
a moral
more, and
cause and all the rest of it.
Ian Glenn, who plays Jorah, the way he watches her when she's like destroying Astapor, it is like she is the second coming. It's like he is. I mean, he obviously fancies her, but like there is this awe, and it's amazing, and the music is so good, and you're like, oh shit, she's just going for it. So it's really a really good episode, really strong episode to sort of kick off our rewatch of season 3. One of my favourites. It's just
I actually had to go back and watch. I watched the previous episode first because sometimes it's difficult to remember exactly how we've reached this point. The one before this was Jaime losing his hand. So which was obviously quite a pivotal moment for him. I
didn't remember that being so early in the season.
Yeah, it was, and also happened. I seem to in my mind again, the old Mandela effect. In my mind, I thought it happened kind of like the same time as he was in the bear pit, and but I'd kind of got confused. But yeah, so we start this episode seeing Jaime pretty much as low as he gets throughout Thrones. He starts off as the cocky, incestual, handsome prince, and gradually kind of gets there again. But this is him at his rock bottom, where he's kind of falling off horses, kind of like with a fever. He's lost his sword hand. You know, he attempts
covered in shit.
Attempts to kind of like attempts to fight back. Realizes that with his right hand is nobody. You know, or his left hand, whatever it is. For a brief, you know, for not for a brief moment, you thought that Jaime was gonna. We all thought that Jaime Lannister was gonna desert Cersei and fight for the cause. Do you remember? You know, there was for a long time. He's going to be the guy that actually double crosses the Lannisters. In the end, he doesn't really. Holy shit! I've just remembered. He has that awful book written about him, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, there's like a ledger for all of the. The
Song of Ice and Fire, the fucking book.
Yeah, no, there's like a ledger for. Is it called the White Book or something? And it's like all the members of the Kingsguard.
What happens and stuff like that. No, but what I mean is that like the book that Brienne, like the last scene of the last episode, where Brienne's writing in the book and rewrites his history, and like he turns it over. Oh my! Anyway, that's.
I think that is the book where it's like the record of all the people who served in the Kingsguard. Yeah, and he's not in it because he was like the Kingslayer.
Is that what we?
I can't remember. I know that
we're going to get told off for not remembering. We've had a few people going. It really winds me up when you two just sit there trying to remember things. To that person, I'm really sorry.
Just watch all the episodes, you two. You fucking idiots. That's what we're. This is the thing, but you know, we will get to that point.
I think that is the problem with us only watching some of the episodes. Like I think where people going mad at us because we couldn't remember. The dagger, Catelyn takes the dagger, all of that shit.
I don't think people are mad. I just think we're.
Oh no, someone was very mad. Someone was very, very mad.
Jaime and Brienne basically are just covered in shit, drinking horse piss, having an awful time.
Yeah.
And they've been captured by. You watched the last episode. His name is Vargo Hoat.
Yeah, and they're Stark men, are they?
They're Northerners.
They're just Northerners.
Technically. Because I think they work for the Boltons.
Right.
But obviously the Boltons are technically working for the Starks. Yeah. But what they're now doing by this point, they are getting ready for the Red Wedding, I think. So they're sort of wild cards. They're these, you know, they're not really playing by the rules. They're
fodder.
Treating Jaime like shit. Yeah. And that's what's kind of scary, I think, for him is that he was like, at least with the Starks, he was, you know, not sort of kept in nice environments, but he was treated delicately because he was quite an important captive. These guys are like, let's just make him drink piss. And I was watching it thinking, how the fuck is that wound not infected?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was thinking. There is no iodine.
If you chopped someone's hand off, you would just die from the shock, wouldn't you?
I guess. I mean, you read about like fucking tree surgeons in America that like carry their own arm back to the hospital after putting it through a chipper, don't you, and stuff like that. Well, not very often, I admit, but you know. But yeah, you'd expect that there's pseudocreme is not big in Westeros.
No, but he's in a low ebb and will continue to be in this state for most of the season. Yeah. This is his redemptive season where we find out. I don't think it's on our rewatch, but when they're having a bath, I can't remember why.
Well, they do have a bath.
I think it's when they go back to Harrenhal, and he confesses to Brienne. He's like, "Look, everyone thinks I just murdered the king because I'm like a cunt, but I murdered him because he was planning on blowing up the city with all the wildfire."
Yeah,
and we realise that he is virtuous in a way.
Yeah.
It's a good season for Jaime. I like this season a lot. But he's such a Nikolai Coster-Waldau, such a handsome man, and you just would not know it. This last 2 seasons, just miserable, dirty, smelly.
Yeah, it happens to best of us.
Yeah, that's me at Glastonbury. That's how I look.
Yeah, that's Sunday afternoon, isn't it? When Diana Ross has walked off and everyone's just like, "Oh, what is life?"
Staggering through hospitality, trying to get a free drink. And where else do we go after that? Do you want to go through the whole thing in order?
Yeah, we may as well. There was a weird the Varys thing. What was the point of the sorcerer moment where he's revealed to be in the chest?
2 things, I think. First of all, Varys hates magic.
Right. Okay.
that's why he was so against Stannis, and that's what he said to Tyrion because of the Red Woman. He doesn't like any magic, awful. But also, I think just a bit of context into his psyche, how fucked up he is, because I think sometimes, especially when you see him later in the episode with Roz, where they're like gossiping about like Littlefinger, he does seem like a sort of catty old woman.
Yeah.
Just stirring his tea and having a chit chat. But that scene with the sorcerers, where you realise he's actually a sadistic, vengeful, and very dangerous person.
We don't see it that often with him, though, do we? Because he does kind of.
No.
Varys was very well played, but I think quite badly written. He didn't.
Yeah.
He never really seemed to have a lot to do.
No.
There wasn't. I mean, unless again, don't shout at me if I've forgotten something. But what was the point of Varys throughout the Game of Thrones? What did he do?
Everyone
did something, didn't they? What was his act in Game of Thrones that justified his reason for being there?
Well, I think a big part of the appeal of the show is you don't know who's working with who, and so you need some people that are, pulling strings.
There.
And he is, obviously not at this point, but he begins to support Daenerys. He takes Tyrion over to Pentos to sort of game. So he is kind of, a sort of working around. And in the, again, I mean, do you know what? I'm not even going to finish that sentence. I was going to say, in the books, I'm not going to do it. It's not a book podcast. It's not a fucking book podcast, is it?
We've already been told that.
I think he's a great character, actually. I think he's complicated. I love his relationship with Tyrion. It's very sort of like fun. But yeah, he's just constantly like engineering stuff behind the scenes, and obviously later in the episode he meets or hangs out with Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns.
That was a good scene.
They plot.
See, I think my take is that he is valid to the show, because what he does is he draws things out of other people and gives other people opportunities to do these great speeches and to do these acts, like Tyrion going over to Daenerys and Olenna there. Olenna wouldn't have spoken like that with anybody else in the show.
No.
So it was. No. He's a good conduit for great plot, I think.
And he's really good at bringing out sides of other people. So he's really good in this episode because he makes you realise that Olenna is like a bit of Tywin, but also a bit of a Varys herself. Yeah. She's got a bit of fire in her belly. She's really smart with PR, really powerful. He kind of is like like a seasoning. He sort of accents other characters. You're like, I'm seeing a new side to you.
There was so much that happened in this episode. It was another one of those Game of Thrones episodes where not a shot was spoiled, but there was we managed to cram in, because I'm just looking at my kind of like notes, and we've already done Jaime, then was Tyrion and Varys, and then we go to Gilly and Sam, which is is Gilly and Sam, are they, and correct me, maybe with the exception of Rob and Una Chaplin, character names escapes me. With the exception of them,
Talisa, I think.
Are these two actually they don't count, because are these the one true love story of Game of Thrones that have a happy ending? Everybody else.
Oh, that's interesting.
I can't think of another couple or union that doesn't end in betrayal or death.
No, it's true. It's a weird one because I think you're right. You mentioned with Varys, like, what was the point? I kind of think, what's the point of Gilly? Like, there's nothing really. I found that one of generally one of the hardest.
I think
storylines
that
to follow.
Gilly's point is because she makes a man of Sam, and she gives Sam a reason to become what he becomes, which isn't much, but he gives. In the words of Jack Nicholson in As Good as He Gets, he makes Sam want to be a better man.
That's true. That is true. But it's amazing. I think this particular episode is a good example of, everyone is in it except Rob.
Yeah, that's true.
Rob Stark.
Yeah.
Catelyn is in it in Bran's dream, but like that storyline is not kind of.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that, and that must have been the last time that she shot a scene with any of the children.
Yeah.
Which is quite sad.
But, like, what I would say is when you rewatch, and I feel the same about the Theon thing this season, it's like, I know everyone's contracted to do a certain amount of work, but like, did we need another another episode where he gets chased and beaten up? And I mean, it's very important in terms of Theon admits that Bran and Rickon are still alive. Yeah. He really quickly goes back on what he says to Ramsay initially, where he's like, oh yeah, I hate the Starks. He goes, no, they were actually my family. And my own family don't really care about me, and I've fucked up. I've got no other choice. Yeah. So it's important, but also all season, Theon just gets like repeatedly castrated, or I mean, you can't repeatedly castrate someone, but you know.
Was that just to start Ramsay's kind of, you know, storyline as being the ultimate loony? I think probably.
Yeah, and again, like don't want to invoke the book clause, but all of this happens off page in the books. He disappears for like 2 books. Okay. And then he comes back and he's Reek, and you're like, who is this? And then you realise Reek is Theon, and he's just been like mentally like broken by... Yeah. And they obviously, you know, when you do a TV show, you can't just release Alfie Allen from his contract for a year, like, because, you know, so you have to have him around, and I think they thought maybe this is interesting, but... Well, yeah, but I guess he's probably a guest, you know, he's like a recurring part.
Yeah, true. And then so there was a lot of serious stuff that kind of happened in this episode, but then in the middle of it, there's the what's now the legendary Podrick, which, you know, follows him around like a glorious smell for the rest of his Podrick and his moves. And his.
What do you think?
That's literally what I've written down. What did Chris think he did in there?
Okay, let's just look at the evidence.
It can't just be a finger up the bum, Chris.
It's not a size thing, is it? Because they say it's not bigger than the average.
It's not a size thing. It's not an energy thing. And flexibility, imagination.
Do you think he invented... No, I was going to say, do you think he goes down on them? But doesn't Jon Snow do that to Ygritte? And she's like, oh, I've never had that done to us before. Is that a southern trick? I'm sure that happens in the cave.
Which it is, as we all know. Yeah.
But I thought maybe that's it. But then I thought, I just don't understand. It's so funny because they sort of really go out their way to mention that like everyone's obsessed with Podrick.
Podrick's shagging moves. I don't know. The wheelbarrow? I don't know. My mind's at a blank. I don't know what... They seem pretty advanced.
You should get the actor on.
He's a good lad as well. He is a good lad.
What do you think Podrick was doing?
Well, this is a question for the listeners. We don't want any Pornhub links. Just a tweet that could be read out in a family podcast such as Dragoncast. Yeah. What is the move that Podrick? What's Podrick's special move? We've all got a special move. What's Podrick's? That's what we want to know. If we're doing this chronologically, something happens now that we need to discuss whether we talk about or not, because we
do need to talk about this. I know exactly what you're going to say.
We meet Joffrey, who is absolutely cunt-struck with Marjorie, Natalie Dormer plays an absolute blinder in this episode. Fucking by far,
she's so
absolute
good.
Soar-away success. But. And I think there were two kind of spoilers, huge House of Dragon spoilers. Now, Chris, what's your take on whether we discuss this?
We're covering the episode, so I think we owe it to... We have to mention it. We have to talk about it. Because everyone who's watching alongside with us, look, we all know
what happens
what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and actually, I'd forgotten about it, and I was kind of like, I knew it was coming... and then when he said it, I was like, oh, that actually hasn't spoilt House of the Dragon for me. In fact, it's made me more intrigued and kind of excited to see how they play it. So let's get it out there. Joffrey is pointing down to the dragon pit? No, the crypt.
They're in the Sept of Baelor,
below the
and there's a crypt.
Yeah.
There's a crypt where the royal family are buried, essentially.
Yes, and he tells a story about... Rhaenyra Targaryen, her remains are down there because she was murdered by
her half-brother, Aegon II.
Yep. Eaten by the dragon, I think he said, didn't he? Or murdered by the...
Fed her to his dragon. So I did know about this because just before, when House of the Dragon started, I wrote a piece for GQ about the fact that there's quite a lot of spoilers.
Yeah.
about what happens to the Targaryens and the Dance of the Dragons and so on and so forth in Game of Thrones. So I kind of knew about it, so I've sort of known for a little while. It's kind of funny, isn't it? Because they just didn't know at the time that they were going to spin this out into a TV show. When I interviewed Emma Darcy last year, they said to me that they saw Rhaenyra's whole story as that of an anti-hero. It's sort of similar to a Walter White or a Tony Soprano. Okay. And I think when you view it in that light, this becomes a really compelling story. You think, oh, this is actually knowing how it ends is weirdly more compelling to me. Yeah, because this person is going to presumably get worse and worse, and it really makes me excited for where House of the Dragon is going to go.
Yeah, so there's also, I'm just trying to, I can't see. I'm looking at the Wiki of Ice and Fire. And can't actually see what his dragon is called. Sunfire?
Oh, yeah. Which, is it the yellow one?
I don't know if have we met that dragon yet? Maybe.
I think only in broad shots. I don't think it's been. The thing also I would say is that it is in source material that this is what happens, but it takes place like 100 and odd years ago, right?
Yeah.
It might go down very differently to how it's recorded in the history books, bearing in mind that Aegon II probably wrote the account of what happened.
In the book
what they could
read,
do, and I'm not
in that Night Golden book.
Listen, the winners decide what the story looked like, and obviously it's always going to be skewed towards them. So I'm not saying they will change it, but I think it's a compelling point to make, which is that hearing about how it is down the line and what goes down could be very different things. Yeah. And it's funny. Marjorie and Joffrey, though, another great sort of pairing. Obviously, we saw her a little bit in season 2 with Renly. She's since been sort of paired off with Joffrey. Sansa's been chucked. And Marjorie I got like such Princess Diana energy off her in this episode. This people love her.
Yeah. Oh,
the small folk are like
the waving at the crowd. Yeah, and
Joffrey sees this and goes, and he seems genuinely quite enraptured by her. Like, she possesses some sort of sway over people that he hasn't been able to get through fear.
I think it's called a vagina. And it's called a vagina. She's pretty wily with her. She knows. I think Cersei mentioned it in a previous episode where it's just kind of like she knows that that he can be easily swayed by Marjorie just because she's so. Comparison to Sansa, who was his first kind of. His first betrothed, who was obviously, the big discussion, has she bled yet, and all, she's very virginal and not yet become a woman. All of a sudden you've got Marjorie, who knows exactly what to do, who knows exactly how to gain a man's interest, and has all the tools at her disposal in which to do that. It's no wonder poor Joffrey, his head must have been all over the bloody shop.
Yeah, but she's clever because she sometimes does this like, oh, I'm just like a stupid woman, like explain it to me. Yeah, and which she's obviously way smarter than him. Yeah. And she defers to him in a way that really appeals to his like inherently like sexist, male dominated brain. 100%. But I just think it's like there's so many layers to it. I think Cersei is like really freaked out by how good she is with Joffrey.
Yeah, well, there's that moment where Cersei almost like goes to step forward when they were opening the doors. And you could just see on her face, she was just like, shit, that was good.
She's just brilliant. Yeah. It's just really... And then in contrast to Sansa, who was very docile and very sort of like malleable, but also too naive. I think she just... Joffrey found it quite... She was too pliant. Whereas Marjorie's got this like... This push and pull to her that I think he's just utterly captivated by.
I think he felt like they were a team. That was the thing. It was that whole kind of like, she was holding his hand. She was like, right, do this, wave. And she was like, and he was kind of like, yes, look what a double act we are. What a union.
It's really Charles and Camilla for me.
Oh, God.
And then later we see Marjorie.
Let's have no Charles, Camilla, Harry, William, anything.
No, absolutely not. And then Marjorie also has been very instrumental in coercing Sansa to come with them and marry Loras.
Yes. So then that was the scene on the... all those kind of like, are men allowed on that bridge wherever it is that kind of like that kind of perimeter wall of King's Landing? Like, it always just seems to be flowers and people doing embroidery, doesn't it?
I think my understanding was that there's because Santa's a northerner. There's a tree there that she can pray at. Right. So it's almost like they've built her like a little. But yeah, in theory, it's just it's like the sort of it looks like the smoking area of like a
like outside
Spanish nightclub. It's just like
everyone just doing shots. Just.
But I love all of this bit where the Tyrells are trying to get Sansa to marry into them because they think Bran and Rickon are dead. There is a feeling that Rob's not going to like survive, so she's the key to the North, and everyone wants her. And obviously, what we know is that like she tells Littlefinger she might not go with him. Yeah. He ends up telling the Lannisters they marry her to Tyrion, and it's so like
it all starts.
It's just I love it. This is all the stuff I love. All these like interfamilial like chess pieces moving around. Yeah. I think it's just so great.
And just was porridge plague as well was just such a great turn of phrase. I just loved that. But how many times does Sansa just get filled full of false hope? It's just so often she just looks like
it's not a great season for her.
So eager and she doesn't have many great seasons, to be fair.
No,
I mean when does she finally escape Ramsay? That's not for a while yet, is it?
Season
5,
season 6, because season 6 is the Battle of the Bastards.
Yes. And there you go. So it's like, we're only in season 3. She's got another 3 seasons of just being miserable.
I think also the stuff when she's like taking control and like badass, I think it's a bit heavy-handed. I always found it a bit like, I get that you're trying to, I feel like the show tries to write her.
It was a bit Taylor Swift encore, wasn't it?
It was a little bit like, I mean, it's hard because the show has built this universe where women don't have a lot of agency unless they're sort of pulling the strings in a marriage. And obviously without her doing that, you're like, well, let's have her like, I don't know. I find it hard. I mean, it's necessary, but I'm really not looking forward to season 5 where she's just like having an awful time. Tough for her, but I think, ends up being quite interesting at the end. So yeah, just wish she went to Highgarden, married Loras, just sat around having a lovely time sewing. I would watch that.
Sadly not.
Yeah, never mind.
But yeah, the Olenna speech about the sigil was great. Why do we get fucking roses when everyone else? Their motto.
No wolves, krakens, dragons, and we've got.
Just a great impression of the winter is coming.
I know. I love. Diana Rigg. And not a line wasted with her.
And she was
an icon.
So good. She was so good. Then before we get to Daenerys' section, which we've already spoken, there we head north again for 2 kind of sections. There was the big mutiny with at Craster's Keep. Now I've got to tell you a very freaky story.
Yes.
I watched this on Saturday lunchtime. Rewatched this Saturday lunchtime, and fucking loved it and really enjoyed this bit. I went to a showbiz party on Saturday night, full of actors at Soho House. Met Keir Starmer. That's by the by. What
we got to come back to
what
this.
What really took my breath away and freaked me out completely is that the actor that kicks off the mutiny in this episode, I turned round in Soho House on Saturday night, and he was stood right next to me and looked exactly the same. It was really kind of like, oh my god!
The guy that that's short hair.
He's got a great name. His name is Burn. Hang on a sec. Burn Gorman. His name is.
Sounds more like a Game of Thrones character.
Yeah,
the character.
Exactly. And he played
Rast. Is it?
Yeah, he played Rast in Game of Thrones. Who was the? He's just got that face of a
chilling,
real good face of a villain, and he was stood next to me, and it really, because I'd literally like 2 hours before watched it. What are the chances of that happening? I know I don't believe.
But also, it's not like he's a huge. No offense to him, Byrne, but it's not like he's in like loads of stuff at the moment, is he?
Well, I don't really know. But looking at his discography, he has worked fucking steadily for a long time.
Did you talk to him?
No. But I know, like, it was at a birthday party, so I know we've got a mutual friend, and I was thinking, actually, maybe we should try and see if he fancies coming on.
Well, maybe for season 4, because he's, they go back, don't they? The mutiny is sort of, they capture Bran and Hodor and stuff, don't they? We should get him on for that.
So yeah, that completely freaked me out. But I was always a bit confused with the Craster kind of mutiny. Why were they? Who gave a shit about him? Why don't they just kill him?
Why don't they kill the guy that
the Craster? No, well, I mean, like this whole. Why are they so beholden to him? I don't get. That's. And this is going to be. Far... This is going to be where people remind me that I should have paid attention. And
well, let's just talk. Well, no, it's understandable because we're sort of jumping around a bit. I think personally, a lot of the stuff north is quite ineffective. Generally, I think. Kit Harington wasn't in this episode, was he?
No, he was not. No.
He's with Mance Rayder. That's where he is.
Yeah, he's with Mance and Ygritte, and also, the guy that fancied Brienne for the rest of it.
Tormund.
Yeah.
So let's just go over this. So basically, there was this big massacre at the Fist of the First Men. What's left of the Night's Watch, make it back to Craster's Keep. This is a sort of safe place before they get back to the Wall because they've still got a little bit to go.
Yeah.
It's quite near, but it's like somewhere where they can rest. Their horses can have a lie down or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of important in that space. But Craster has just got a very curious position of power because he's sort of protected from the White Walkers because he gives them his.
But we learn that he sacrifices his sons, but. The Night's Watch could think, this guy's a fucking wrong-un, kill him, let the daughters live out their days, like, house, I tell you what, just keep this functioning, keep this running, we'll use it as a halfway house, everyone's happy. Very weird.
Well, yeah.
Very weird.
That's a good point. I find the mutiny thing, it's difficult because you're sort of like, Jor Mormont dies, and it's like, he really does help keep things together, and it's like, he's a good guy, and it leads difficult...
It sows the seeds for the rebellion against Jon and allows the Night's Watch to become...
But I find it hard. I find it, like, just not that...
interesting.
Compelling, personally.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, his sister wives... I don't know where they go after this. I presume they just sort of...
Yeah, what happened to the rest of the girls? Maybe that's because Craster does get killed soon. No, he gets killed in this episode, didn't he? Didn't he get killed?
Yeah, he gets killed. But then when Rast and is it Carl, the other lad that does the mutiny, they we go back there in season 4, and it's really grim because they're just all like shagging Craster's daughters, wives.
Fine, yeah, maybe it doesn't.
I'm not looking forward to that
maybe
either. Don't love that storyline generally. Just find it hard.
Yeah.
Again, they're just showing us every single thing that happens, and it's like, do you know what? If you were doing this now, like House of the Dragon era, you would just cut stuff, or you would tell stuff in conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just realised didn't see Kit Harington. Sorry, Kit.
But yeah, we didn't get all of the storylines. There is that whole Mance thing kicking up as well. But I thought it's a strong ending. But there was in the Hound. So there was a brief scene with the Hound with the
Brotherhood without banners.
Banners like Beric Dondarrion, a brilliant character.
But Brotherhood without banners are fun. They're a good addition. They are all like, they don't have sigils. They've abandoned. They're sort of like merry men, like Robin Hood merry men sort of guys.
Yeah.
They're a good sort of component, and they're like a good. This is quite. I remember being very excited by this because it's like, oh, the Hound's finally going to pay.
Yeah.
And then the Hound kind of rightfully says, like, I'm sorry, what are you accusing me of? Because you're just pissed at my brother for murdering a load of people. I've just been following the king's orders or the prince's orders, So, yeah, I love that. But, yeah, there's just so much, isn't there?
So much.
It's a lot.
I think it's the next episode we see the trial by combat, and that's when he comes back to life. I love that character, and I love the fact that it's the whole you take something, you have to give something, and like how kind of like. You see him just getting a slightly more madder and losing bits of himself.
Losing bits of himself.
The more times he resurrects, it's just great.
And it's also, what I find interesting about this is it's very magic, very supernatural. And yet it's sort of, you just go, okay, you can come back to life. Yeah. Okay, I don't understand it.
And no one really questions it.
No, because it's just like, well, you are alive. So I guess it's just really interesting how easy some of this is.
But they had to do this because otherwise we would never, ever have accepted in a million years that Jon Snow could just we're just going to bring him back to life.
Yeah, and it's important because he follows the Red God. That's his R'hllor. Yeah. That's the same person that Melisandre is sort of in service to. And so, you start to get this sense of like...
Death is not the end.
This is not a world where any of this makes sense, but like, is it because the dragons have been born? Is there something about the White Walkers? Like, what is happening? Like, something is kind of going on. Yeah. That's allowing this to happen.
A great episode. Really, really enjoyed it. Thank you, everybody that picked it. And obviously, it ends with, as we've already discussed, Daenerys trotting off with her Unsullied, and now we only see, and her dragons. Which one have we got next? We've got episode 7.
The Bear and the Maiden Fair. I'm actually just going to jump in and just check what happens. It looks like an interesting one, actually. We've got Theon getting castrated. Great.
Oh, it's the sausage one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got obviously the title comes from the bear pit.
Yeah. So it's the bear. It is the bear pit episode, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Gendry finds out who he really is. It's going to be another interesting one. It doesn't. Is there a pivotal? Maybe it is the bear pit scene.
It is. Like it's quite a big set piece.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
It's interesting. I would quite like, obviously, very democratic process, but we've missed the climb, which is the one where they do scale the wall, and I remember that being an amazing set piece. This is a season where I feel like you could have done any 3 episodes, and it would have been an amazing rewatch. Yeah. So I might end up having to watch some more, because I think same.
I think so too. But very good.
Really good episode. Loved it. I think it sets loads up. It's great. I thought it was very long. It's not longer than usual, but it felt very long.
That's what I mean. It just felt like, wow, this is just like everything's kicking off.
Have we got leading up to any Red Wedding precursors? Dum 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 dum. Yeah. So Rob is on his way to the twins for what will then be the Red Wedding.
Oh. Maybe when we watch it won't happen. Maybe something,
I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. That is going to be amazing.
Fab.
Right.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for listening. As ever, if you've got any comments to make, do so. Even the shitty ones. It's all, we're a broad church. Get onto YouTube at Dragoncast.
We sure are.
Dragoncast on YouTube or at Dragoncast_pod. On the old Twitters and let us know, or just email dragoncast@daftdoris.com. We did do a competition before Christmas actually to give away the box set of or season 1 of House of the Dragon. I will have a look through. I think the first correct answer, we asked you who was Davos Seaworth's son. What was the name? It was Mathos. Well done. Thanks very much, George, for another easy to remember name. It is between...
How does he come up with
that? Oh, no. He just changes a single letter, doesn't he? And just like, that'll do.
Yeah.
It's between Man of Bronze 79 on YouTube and someone on Twitter. I need to work out who was first. You both look very, very close. So I'll find out. If not, we'll get in touch with either of you and let you know which one of you won. And we will be back either tomorrow or the day after for a bonus episode of the OA, which we are watching. I'm rewatching. Chris is watching for the first time.
I'm watching it for the first time.
We're now on season 1, episode 5, and that will be coming up tomorrow. So, Chris, until then, Dracarys, my friend.
Dracarys.